Welcome to TMTalks. This is your host T, and we're here to talk about MGTOW. It's men going their own way. I'm joined with the host in the studio, Em.
Holla!
And we're going to talk about, men choosing their own destiny. It's an interesting concept.
Men going their own way, saying bye-bye ladies, and doing their own shit, which, as I'm on my own personal journey of something similar, I gotta say, do it up, guys. Do what you need to do to make yourselves a better human being. I totally respect that.
And that's distinct from the incel community, which it's often associated with. I want to get that out of the way early.
Oh yeah, incels are not the same as MGTOW. Incels are sad, lonely-ass losers who can't get a date. MGTOW are guys who, on average, they're choosing not to go with a woman, and they're choosing to work on themselves or do their own thing. And that's different because there's a choice. MGTOW chooses that involuntary celibacy is not a choice.
Right. So what do you think causes men to go MGTOW?
First, I'll say it from the feminist perspective. Some people are just, some dudes can't handle the world that we're living in and what's going on with that. Like, I see feminism as kind of the cause of MGTOW because it's a backlash effect. But also, I don't blame guys for going out of their way to avoid women because our culture has really gotten hostile towards fathers and men who actually want to be good parents, but they get fucked over when it comes to custody, and our society is kind of fucked over men in several ways, at the same time giving women a certain level of privilege. But then again, that gets into male and female privilege.
Right. Do you think, what specific issues do you think non-father MGTOWs face?
I think non-MGTOWs and fathers face, at least just any man who has a child and they want to get custody of them is going to have to go through a legal shitstorm to get
non-father
them.
Ones, like
the non-fathers, I'm guessing someone got scorned at some point, whether it be their mother, family member who's female, or it was a lover, or something along those lines, that they got fucked over. Those are some big contributing factors that I see. And I've watched a number of MGTOW videos because they're interesting to watch. And since I'm on a personal journey, I try to listen to what the opposite side has to say so I can better improve myself to be a better person. And you know what? I really encourage a lot of those MGTOW philosophy channels who aren't they're not assholes to women. I mean, I can definitely tell there's some animosity there, but you treat me and other women with a certain level of respect, and I give props where props are due because I am trying to improve myself. And my best friends, my female friends, my family, stuff like that, they're not going to tell me what I need to do to become a better person. And that's probably because a lot of people view me as a good person, but it's like, no, I got a lot to work on, and a lot of it's internal shit, but I can't see from the outside.
Do you think,
Actually, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, when it comes to MGTOW, as a guy, especially a guy with such an interesting, phase of the world, I mean, you're mixed, you aren't a good, you're nowhere near inceldom because, well, we both know that it's not hard for you to get laid. And, you're a reasonably attractive guy, you've got XYZ things working for you, and you could easily go MGTOW. I mean, what's your opinion on it? What's your view?
I never saw the advantage of singling out women or any specific group as the cause or...
Is that because of your upbringing, being a multiracial individual?
Well, I was mostly brought up by my mother and her girlfriends, so I was brought up around women, so I get used to women, and I can see how that would give me a certain level of education on how they work. And a lot of people are brought up in male-dominated households with an overbearing father, and it has its consequences. They don't hear the woman's side of things a lot of the time because they're overshadowed by the man if they're in mixed company. And a lot of times that
and
can
I
be
can
limiting.
understand where MGTOW is coming from because I come from a household with an overtly outspoken feminist mom who my dad's a very intelligent man, but he and my mom are not compatible, and I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but I come and I understand that men do get fucked over in a lot of ways. Like, I watched that kind of happen to each one of my parents getting fucked over by society in one way or another, and both my parents are intelligent individuals. It's just I saw how women attacked my dad for XYZ reasons, and I saw how men attacked my mom for XYZ reasons. Mm-hmm. So that it's interesting, but like from your perspective, because you understand more of a minority point of view than I do.
Yeah, diversity is a good thing. So a lot of problems arise from insular groups, I think. Like cops, for example. They tend to be an insular group. And there's nothing wrong with individual idea of
police officers are not assholes.
Right.
They're
an insular group, and they usually only hang out with each other because who wants to hang out with the cop type of thing.
Yeah.
So
okay, so what you're getting at, just so I can simplify this for myself, is these specific groups are people that they hang around with people with a similar ideology set,
right,
or mindset,
and reinforce their own beliefs in an echo chamber.
Yeah, they just constantly reinforcing that ideology, that the building blocks of that, and shit like that. So they don't really get to see outside of that sphere. Also, that's kind of why I step outside of my sphere and watch these videos.
Right, and just about everyone is in some insular group because people are in multiple social groups.
Oh yeah, we're totally stuck in the feminist crap. So much crap.
Well, yeah, and a lot of it is because a lot of it is people who don't either know what they're talking about online or any number of misinformation or intentional fucking with of information. Like, that's a huge problem in the 21st century, is the manipulation of information, and people only get what they look up on Google, and that's an algorithm that's based on seeing what it thinks you want to know. So it will only give you information that biases your own opinion.
Yeah, and no matter what, I always recommend people go outside of your groups to learn better about them. Like, not all cops are racist, but, you get into certain communities with certain mindsets and history, you might get a racist bunch of cops who, the younger kids might not be that bad, and, everybody's pretty mild set, but you might have just one apple, and one apple could ruin a batch. I'm not saying that happens all the time. I'm gonna say cops are not inherently racist, okay? We live in a state where, actually, I live in a city where I've seen more ethnic minorities as cops, when I say ethnic minorities, it's just as an umbrella term because I come from a small city, but there are Cambodians, I have met Laominians, I have met African American, I have met Nigerian, I have met, people of every racial background and subset, and it's like, you have a guy who's like 1/8 German and 10 other things from Europe, who by definition is a very American mutt, talking to his partner about a barbecue, and they're both cops, and the partner is a black Asian dude who kicks ass in Taekwondo and does MMA. Cops are an interesting group, and they're not inherently racist, but, you get into certain communities, the likelihood of that racism goes up. So.
Yeah, because of externalities, just like anything else, they're affected by any number of external pressures. And the only thing that exists is these usually economic incentives. Like, if the precincts profit from putting people in jail, then they're going to be more aggressive in persecuting those.
But on the MGTOW subject, why do you think, especially as a guy, why do you think dudes are going their own way?
It has to do with, I think, a lot of the insular group thing. But just a lack of understanding. I think a lot of it comes down to lack of emotional intelligence and the ability to read people. And people stereotype women as a problem instead of looking at themselves and seeing what they can do to change their outcomes. And a lot of people don't really treat themselves that well, and a lot of people don't go out and socialize enough. And
actually, I was reading this book by a Scottish author. It's called Unfuck Yourself. And it talks about how when we talk to ourselves, how is that coming out? Like, we all talk to ourselves at some point, whether it's our internal voice or external voice being the commentator on it. It talks about how do you talk to yourself? Like, do you listen to how you talk to yourself? Like, I tell myself I'm a fat fucking bitch who needs to take a chill pill on something. Like, I know when I'm overreacting to something, and I have a way of correcting that behavior, and I'm still working on that, and, you know, my attempt at being a better human being. But how many people actually listen to what they're saying? Like, I think a lot of the MGTOW and misandry problems that are popping up, like, because I see this shit all the time. As a feminist, I'm sure you see this as a male feminist, there's a shit ton of misandry inside of feminism, and I'm seeing that with the fucking MGTOW and the misogyny that is inside of it.
That's why it's important to learn to use kind of dog whistles. Like, there's ways to communicate without saying something like threatening and making people defensive immediately. Like, if you say someone's a misandrist, then they'll automatically become like, I'm not a misandrist, I'm X and Y, less offensive thing. And that way, I'll be able to deflect the conversation. But if you say, if you just question the logic of their beliefs and just go with logos instead of pathos in every possible opportunity, then you can be like, why are you, what specifically don't you like about men? And just kind of approach it from a more approachable angle. Yeah,
and I think, like, women, we've actually had this inside our communities for a long time. So, there is a thing called Wig Town, but it does not look the same. It kind of looks the same if you can see it from both perspectives. Women go out of their way to say fuck men, especially after a breakup, and we all know the stereotype. It's like one chick who just got out of a bad relationship, and she's like, fuck men, forget men, fuck this shit, I'm out. And it's just, it's a girl who's like, I'm done with men, I'm done dealing with this shit. You know, half of the plots of romantic comedies. And, you know, that's a thing. That's been a thing inside of women's, you know, culture, I want to say, throughout, or at least white women culture, because I swear that's like every comedy movie, romantic rom-com crap from the 90s kind of has that vibe. But yeah, women have been doing that and no one questions it, but, you know, men do the same thing, and now we're like up in arms like, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? And I kind of can see how after that kind of reaction, guys are like, excuse me, I'm a human being, I'm gonna go do my own thing, fuck you.
Yeah, progress is offensive, and existing structures will defend themselves, and a lot of people are learning from people who lived in a very sexist culture in, say, the 60s, and pass that down through their children. Like,
yeah, we're trying to do better as a human species. Like, I'm going to get a lot of hate because I'm either bashing on feminism or bashing on misandryism, or, you know, like, as a feminist, I know I get a lot of clap back because my personal beliefs don't line up with everybody, and when I call another bitch out on being a bitch, because guess what, honey, you're only 2 steps away from being a cunt. And people are like, oh, well, you're this and that, bitch. You ain't this, you ain't that. Like, I know my ghetto side showing, but I do deal with a lot of women who will say to me, oh, well, you can't do this because you're not that. And it's like, no, I can do this. It's just calling people out on their bullshit, and they don't like that. And guys have had their bullshit called out for the last, 100 years. Like, it's wrong to rape a woman. Like, in the 1930s in fucking Germany, there is some fucked up dialogue that you hear between some of these officers were like, oh, we just go rape a chick. And apparently in other countries that's was considered okay. And there are places on our planet in 2018
how about India?
That, oh my god, yeah, like, it's not okay to touch anyone without their permission.
Right.
And I know that gets into things, and if you're in a long-term relationship, just let me finish the whole long-term. If you're in a long-term relationship and how that plays out, and you go and touch your partner, it's not necessarily sexual harassment, but you know what's reciprocated from a partner that you've been with for a long time. That is the difference between having a consent contract, which, again, I actually think those things are ridiculous, and having a long-term relationship between you and a partner. That's where you know the consent, but it doesn't mean you always have it.
Right, and that's why demonizing terms like rape culture I think is dangerous, because there is clearly no other term to describe what happens in places like India, and even places like in impoverished areas of America. Like, there's rampant issues socially that we can't describe because people don't like that we use those terms.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as someone who has suffered from, who has been at the hands of an abuser, rape culture does exist, but it's in terms, guys, it doesn't mean that you're going to go out and rape someone. But, someone who's an incel who says that a woman should be raped if she's not doing what a guy says, yeah, that's rape culture. That's fucked up. Rape jokes aren't... Well, rape jokes can be funny.
No.
I mean, okay, prison rape jokes. That's something in our culture we joke about, and it's...
Would recommend avoiding is all.
It's not a good thing to do, and like I said, you gotta work on that shit, but we as a society can't handle certain things, and it's the paradox of a tolerant society can't tolerate an intolerant society. But my thing is, let's just respect everybody.
The paradox of intolerance is really important. Like, having infinite tolerance leads to intolerance, because in opposition to that, intolerance gets wiped out. Yeah, if everybody could just respect each other for what they are. I don't care if you're a fucking Nazi. I don't care if you're a black supremacist. Well, I mean, I do care to some extent, because some one group might try and kill me or rape me. But I don't care what you say. I care about what you do. I care about if you are a figurehead and what you say has weight. And I care about what happens. So, I could give a shit less about Jared from Subway, but I find out he is a pedophile. Yeah, I think I want to see that guy get his ass handed to him. But I also, just on that topic, we don't take men's problems serious enough in society, I think we make more of a joke about it, and that's another thing that ties into MGTOW. They don't feel like their problems are being taken seriously enough, and from the feminism side, I actually don't see enough feminists actually looking at men in the same light that we look at women's problems, because here's a fun statistic for everyone out there. 1 out of every 6 girls experiences some level of sexual harassment by the time they're 16, but 1 in 7 boys also experiences sexual harassment by the same age. So that is a very close statistic, and even though women are marginally more attacked, men are still attacked, and I think that's why I agree with MGTOW on some level. Yeah, it's more underground, so you can't talk about certain things like men getting harassed.
Men aren't allowed to cry in our society.
Right, yeah, you have to emotionally oppress everything, and that lack of expression has consequences, so people will lash out in other ways inappropriately. And
I think the part of the us as in a society not embracing men the same way we do women, that animosity builds and it manifests itself into anger, because anger is a secondary emotion. If you understand it, it generally is tied to sadness and other things like that. So, you get these feelings, they manifest and they become something angry, and they become something, bigger than they are, and they might be triggered by something valid, but this is your way of validating your experience. You'll go onto a forum and say you hate women, or, you'll find one of these philosophies, click onto it, and then, go down the rabbit hole as it is. And I don't think men are necessarily bad. I don't think women are necessarily bad, but I think that the more we isolate ourselves and not want to look at it and understand people, is the more we're going to have problems. Because women are bitches and dudes are assholes, and anyone in between is still considered, a fucktard in my opinion. Because we're all
Yeah.
fucktards. That's a unisex term. All right, non-binary people, don't you come attacking me from the dark depths of Tumblr for
But
that.
we can't be. Like, we can't be fucktards or we're not going to succeed in an increasingly competitive world.
Yeah, especially since we're...
It's really important to have standards for yourself and, like, to try to strive for bettering yourself. And that has to be a social, communal thing, because if we just fall into this, like, pit of hedonism, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's the great paradox about our time. We're defining ourselves and how we're going to be as a spatial community, because as Trump has decided, he wants the Space Force. And you know what that means, kids? That
Breaching
means
the 1967 Outer Space Treaty.
We are moving more and more closer to how we're going to define ourselves as a space traveling community. Because Earth is one giant community in a tiny little corner of the universe.
We're not going to have anything to do with space. We're going to be paying for space while rich people go to space in our lifetime, and then eventually maybe robots will take their place.
Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if robots take their place now, because it's problematic at best to put humans in space.
Right.
But
I mean, they're giving them a huge radiation dose just from the Van Allen belt, so
oh my god,
that kind of sucks.
We're getting so far from what we were supposed to be talking about. But I think, just to sum it up, MGTOW is, in my opinion, interesting because I'm learning from it, but I really do want to see some of these guys, if they're listening and they're seeking out advice on this topic or they're interested in this topic, you can go your own way. No one's stopping you in that. But, while you're going your own way, keep in mind that you are a person and women are people too, and what one individual does not affect the whole society. And I'm sorry that you had a negative connotation or confrontation with a woman to cause you to feel this way, or have multiple is generally the case I see. I'm sorry that you've had to deal with that, but I'm hoping more women go down the similar path to me and actually work on themselves. Because here's the thing, ladies, if you're listening, you don't have to be just a mom or a career woman. You can be both, or you can be neither, because the pinnacle of our lives is not having kids and getting married. You can do way more for society. You don't have to be like that. But at the same time, guys, you've never had to pick that. Like, just as an understanding thing, women, we have it in our heads that we have to get a man, and even though we've had this last 100 years of, fight the power, feminism, we have had this, increase in equal rights, women still feel biologically like we have to choose between a career or having kids, or we have to have kids. And we are just starting to feel like we don't have to go out of our way for certain things. Also, ladies, we gotta accept that we can't all get a magic mic. Like, I'm sorry. Some bitches are ugly, some dudes are ugly, and, you stick to similar numbers. I know that's a harsh truth, but, only a few things will help out in that category. Biology is biology.
Fair point. Well, this is TNM.
TMTalks, and you know what? It's time for us to, light this bombing. GTFO out.
Peace out.
That was